Folks, Blackstar Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Blackstar Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today's Monday, April 8th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Blackstar Network. Actor Jonathan Majors escapes jail but must undergo domestic violence counseling. Reporter Lauren Victoria Burke was in the courtroom in New York City. She'll tell us exactly what took place. A Florida jury finds a black man guilty of a DUI even after a white cop planted evidence during a May 2023 traffic stop. White conservatives are on a crusade against DEI programs in medical schools. Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton will explain how banning those programs could, could lead to decades or crush decade-long efforts to address health disparities. April is National Minority Health Awareness Month, and of course, the focus is raising the importance of health and dealing with the racial data that we see, or really racial apartheid that we see. Tonight, we're going to find out why black women are most vulnerable to dying after childbirth. And Haitian leaders have laid out a political plan to have a president sworn in by February 2026. And South Carolina goes undefeated and wins the Women's National Championship. Dawn Staley becomes the first black coach to ever win 3 national titles. Well, first at Division 1A. Tennessee State won 3, and Vice President Kamala Harris honored them last week at the White House. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
No jail time for actor Jonathan Majors. Of course, he was convicted of misdemeanor assault. He will have to take a 52-week mandatory in-person domestic violence program for assault and harassment of his former girlfriend during a domestic dispute. Lauren Victoria Burke of Black Press USA was in the courtroom in New York City. She joins us right now. Lauren, glad to have you here. So exactly what took place here in terms of what we saw in the courtroom. What really went on here?
Well, what went on was, of course, you know, you had a large degree of media there. Jonathan Majors had about 10 to 15 supporters sitting in the courtroom in the rows right behind him. He came in and he greeted those people and shook everyone's hand before everything got going. Then there was a conference between the prosecution attorneys and his defense attorneys for a few minutes. And then about, I would say, 5 minutes to 10 a.m. this morning, his ex-girlfriend, Miss Grace Jabari, comes into court with like 5 people and sits down in the rows behind the prosecution side of the courtroom. And then the judge starts reading and then gives Ms. Jabari an opportunity to read a victim's impact statement, which was quite interesting. And then proceeded to tell everyone that after that was over, that Mr. Majors would have to complete this 52-week program and then sort of announce some other standard operating procedures with regard to what he can and cannot do. There was some restraining order. New York City does have that law with regard to if you are in some way involved in a domestic violence incident, you cannot own a firearm. So that was announced. And after that, Mr. Majors left. But I dare say that it is interesting that after all of this, it's a 52-week program, no jail time. One would think that this could have been settled a year ago. I mean, it is obvious that this was probably not going to be jail time. It is a misdemeanor case, and very surprisingly, it played out for 2 weeks in full-blown trial. I would be curious to know how many of these types of cases play out in full-blown trial for a misdemeanor case. So for Mr. Majors putting his ex-girlfriend in the back of an SUV, that for me is a bit much, particularly coming from a prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, who campaigned on this idea of restorative justice and not, he has that sort of progressive prosecutor type campaign that many other prosecutors have had around the country, that they would not just prosecute anything. It seems that this was a bit of an over-prosecution, to say the least. So it was an interesting time in court. There was a tremendous amount of media there, probably more media than I think I had seen at any other time when I was in court before. I was a little surprised at that. I was naive. So there was plenty of press there.
You called the impact statement interesting. What do you mean by that?
I think that there were a few lines in the impact statement with regard to Ms. Jabari. I have to get the actual statement to quote directly, but there was something in there about I will never rest, and he will do this to other women, and I will never rest until it is assured that I can stop him from doing that. Keep in mind that Meagan Good is in the courtroom, sitting in the front row, right behind Jonathan Majors. And there was some lines in there about, she would never rest until all the facts came out and this and that. So I do think that Ms. Jabari has not gotten over this situation. She has sued him civilly. There's a sense there that she's not over this and that she's kind of trying to figure out a way to be in his life. But the statement read, if you had landed here from another planet and you didn't know anything about Jonathan Majors and you heard that victim impact statement, you would think that this was a full-blown rape or sexual assault case and not a misdemeanor case in which the defendant was acquitted of all the intentional charges and then has this thing that's a misdemeanor, sitting there that typically is pled out of court with no trial for most defendants. So her impact statement was quite interesting and quite lengthy. And I think that this is a person who has not completely gotten over this situation.
Well, the point that you made about this, how this ended up, you're right. To think that this went through all of this and you came to this sort of sentence, this is typically a plea deal. Right. And a plea deal that could have happened and could have been offered a year ago. And as you already know, Roland, from interviewing the girlfriend of Kevin Porter, this is now the third time that a black male has been prosecuted by this office under Alvin Bragg on what I would define as some very questionable situation. First of all, you bring that up, the Kevin Porter case. Guess what? That was a settlement. And you know what he got? Court-ordered domestic violence treatment. Exactly. That was no trial. That was no jury selection. That was no, all of that. These were misdemeanor charges. Right. And so clearly there's a change in policy. We're dealing with a very young assistant DA that I believe got her, had passed the bar maybe 3 months before prosecuting Mr. Majors, and is very young. And I think that these people have no sense of what the history is when it comes to black men in the criminal justice system. They sure as hell like to talk a lot about other histories of other groups of people, which is all fine. I think people should be held accountable when we're talking about serious incidents involving domestic violence. There's nobody that's going to argue with that. But the prosecution brought an expert with regard to domestic violence, which is fine. That person talked about misogyny and the history of women and how they've been treated. All fine, all true.
But somehow or another, when it comes to the history of the way black folks have been treated, and this specific case, black males in our criminal justice system, nobody wants to talk about that history. So I'm a little bit sort of glued to the fact that this all happened. And when I think of Adam Foss and Kevin Porter, Adam Foss and Kevin Porter happened right before that, and now Jonathan Majors. So one has to wonder, has Alvin Bragg brought a new policy to the Manhattan DA's office in which he is going to prosecute every argument, every time somebody yells at somebody, every time somebody places someone into a vehicle and then runs down the streets of Manhattan away from them, which is what Jonathan Majors did? Is all that getting prosecuted now? That would be a change in policy.
Well, it is interesting when you explain it that way, and so what I'm sure, and for Jonathan Majors, after this incident, significant financial loss of movie roles, TV roles, and now he has to, frankly, put his career back together because he was riding high before this took place.
Absolutely, and I'm going to be quite blunt. I think if his name was John Smith, none of this would have happened. There's a feeling here that this is being used as a vehicle to amplify certain advocacy groups and certain issues. And again, I think certainly there's nobody that's going to argue that we shouldn't be doing stuff about serious domestic violence. The question is, was this serious? And now this 52-week sentence with no jail time would indicate we could have done this last year. So I do think this is a very interesting moment.
All right. Well, Victoria Burke, we sure appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All
right, folks. Got to go to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, nurses are the backbone of the healthcare industry, and yet only 7% of them are Black. What's the reason for that low number? Well, a lack of opportunities and growth in their profession. Joining us on the next Get Wealthy is Needy Bartonillich. She's going to be sharing exactly what nurses need to do and what approach they need to take ownership of their success.
So the Black Nurse Collaborative really spawned from a place and a desire to create opportunities to uplift each other, those of us in the profession, to also look and reach back and create pipelines and opportunities for other nurses like us.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Blackstar Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Latasha from the A.
And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
A Florida jury convicts a Black man of DUI even after body cam video shows a white police officer planting evidence. Leon County Judge Jason Jones sentenced Calvin Riley to 10 days in jail and 6 months of probation for the May 2023 arrest. This case received a national spotlight just days ahead of the start of the trial because media outlet Our Tallahassee posted an edited clip of the arresting officer's body camera footage. The footage shows, in part, an officer picking up a bottle from Riley's car during the incident, pouring out the contents and placing the bottle back inside the vehicle. After the video garnered thousands of views, in reaction last week, the Tallahassee Police Department denies any misconduct allegations. So I'm still sort of confused by this here. I'm going to bring in my panel right now to chat about this. Glad to have them with us today because it's still is quite confusing. And when you start talking about these type of stories and this judge's decision, I'm still trying to understand that the alcohol was in the car, and then now she empties the car and then places it back. Gavin Reynolds, contributor with The Root and former speechwriter for Vice President Kamala Harris. He joins us now from New Haven, Connecticut. Tyler McMillan, social justice leader, former national director, youth and college of the National Action Network. Derek L. Jackson, Georgia State Representative, District 68 out of Atlanta. You know what, I would say, Derek, if I'm the police department, I'm putting that officer on desk duty where they can get much better training, because I still don't understand. Once she pulled him over suggesting that she smelled marijuana. I guess I'm still confused how you can smell marijuana with a moving car. But then all of a sudden it turns into a DUI and she pours the alcohol out. This whole case has been confusing.
You know, Roland, it is often these types of scenarios that we constantly see, especially as it relates to Black men, how police officers violate their rights. I mean, when you go as far as planting evidence, so put training aside for a second, I think this is more about the behavior that we constantly see. This is a behavior where those who think that it's okay to criminalize citizens before there are even charged, before, as you stated, how can you smell marijuana? What kind of sense do you have? That's the reason why we have canines to do that kind of work. Our sensitivity of our nose do not qualify a person to be able, in the court of law, saying, well, I smell marijuana, I saw this empty bottle of liquor, and I suspect that this person should be charged. The judge, which is even more confusing, with this amount of evidence from the body cam video footage, clearly should make the right call on this. But we tend to not see this because when it comes down to law enforcement, and it's interesting that we continue to talk about immunity. This immunity that's typically garnered to law enforcement officers tend to create this behavior, this mindset that we constantly see in these types of scenarios. It goes well beyond training, well before training, because if this brother was European or someone other than Black, then the outcome of this scenario would be very, very different.
And again, sure, it's 10 days given, but the reality is the actions of this officer should be questioned by folks all across the country.
Absolutely. And, you know, ordinarily in situations like this where we have body cam footage, you know, we've seen the ways in which, thankfully, that footage sheds much needed light on the circumstances that actually transpired and actually end up making it such that, you know, the inevitable Black man who's in this situation can get some sort of justice in that situation. But yet and still, here we have this body cam footage, and, you know, this Black man is still, you know, received this outcome, you know, that he has. And we see this happen time and time again, just in the cases where we do have body cam footage and it does make the news. But how many other instances, you know, have we seen this occur, or have we not seen this occur when we don't have that body cam footage, we don't have that evidence? You know, in those cases, you know, justice is far from served for those police officers who carry out this malfeasance. And we have to remember, too, that in so many instances, right, when Black men in these situations, like this gentleman here, get, you know, this sort of stain on their criminal record, this can also have ramifications for their ability to vote and participate in our democratic processes. So it's important that we keep that in mind. It's important. The last thing I'll say, too, is that, again, and I beat the drum on this time and time again, in this election season, we know there's a lot at stake at the presidential level, but there's so much at stake at the state and local levels, too. When we talk about who are the judges who are deciding these cases, who are the sheriffs and police chiefs who are going to be, you know, leading these police departments, who are the mayors, right, who we're voting for, who are going to appoint, those local law enforcement leaders. We have to understand that when we talk about our democracy requires participation from each and every one of us at every single level. And that can be the difference between, these situations happening or not, or when they happen, ensuring that these police officers get desk duty and not another ride around the block.
Tyler?
Yeah, I will echo the same words as my panelists before. I won't go into anything deeper, but I think, my role as youth director, I had opportunities to work with a lot of families and victims that fell to police violence. And I think, this is just I would think that he came out safe, but I think this outcome is yet another failure on the U.S. Department of Justice. And I echo the same thing that, we saw the video, the proof was in the body camera footage. But I think that adds on to the lack of trust that's within the community. And the question is, what else has this department been hiding? I think there should be a review of every DUI that this officer has conducted. And I think there should be a federal investigation into the Tallahassee Police Department.
All right, then we'll certainly see what happens there. All right, I want to go to this next story here. And so we all know Donald Trump only gives a damn about rich people. But listen to this racist comment that he actually makes. And remember, he did the exact same thing when he was at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I keep trying to explain to people, Donald Trump has one desire. He wants white immigrants in this country. He does not want any people of color. Watch this.
Great honor that you're here. It's going to be a very spectacular evening, and people are just wanting change. Rich people want it, poor people want it, everybody wants change. Our country is really doing poorly. We're a laughing stock all over the world, and we're going to get that change very quickly. And this has been some incredible evening before it even starts, because people, they wanted to contribute to a cause of making America great again, and that's what's happened. We're going to make America great again. Everyone knows it. The election's going to be in now a little more than 6 months, and it's going to be the most important, I believe, election we've ever had. I think it's going to go down as the most important date in the history of our country. That's November 5th will be the most important date in the history of our country. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here.
Did you talk to Garcia's family, President Trump?
Now, that was part of the BS comments that he made. But again, he's talked about immigrants before and what he desires. And how, where he said, I'm going to find the clip for a second, where he wants people from nice countries, like Switzerland and countries along those lines. That's a tell. That's a tell there. I'm going to see if I can actually find that part right there. Just give me a second. Let's see if I can find it right here. Let's see here. I think maybe I have it right here. Possibly. Actually, I'm going to find a clip in a second. But he says, Gavin, nice countries, Switzerland, countries along those lines. He does not want black people. And if you're an African immigrant, if you are Latino, I don't know what the hell you're thinking. He don't want y'all in this country.
No, absolutely not. And I know we're going to talk about Haiti a little bit later tonight, but he had those famous comments where he referred to, countries like Haiti as shithole countries. Donald Trump made it explicitly and abundantly clear. Look, I'm a proud son of immigrants. My parents immigrated here from the beautiful country of Jamaica. I don't even know if he would want people coming in from Jamaica these days. So when we hear Donald Trump make these comments, when we hear him talking about how he believes that immigrants are poisoning the blood, he's not talking about people coming in from Europe. We know that's a fact. He's talking about people from those shithole countries, as he's termed them, and he wants our immigration system. He wants our whole country to look a very certain kind of way, and we best believe that if we let him anywhere near the Oval Office again, he's going to put in place the policies, he's going to put in place the procedures, he's going to work through Congress to enact the laws that will fundamentally reshape and redesign our immigration system and our country in his image.
So this is, the New York Times reported this, Tyler. And during the fundraiser, this is what he said. He appeared to refer to an episode during his presidency when he drew significant criticism after an Oval Office meeting with federal lawmakers about immigration, during which he described Haiti and some nations in Africa as shithole countries compared to places like Norway. And when I said, why can't we allow people to come in from nice countries? I'm trying to be nice, Trump said at the dinner, to chuckles from the crowd. Nice countries, like Denmark, Switzerland. Do we have any people coming in from Denmark? How about Switzerland? How about Norway? He continued. And they took that as a very terrible comment, but I felt it was fine. He went on to say that there were people coming from Yemen where they're blowing each other up all over the place. He's literally saying, dang, can we not get more white people here?
Literally, I think this is no surprise to the agenda. We talk about white supremacy and suppression of Black and brown folks in this country. And I think even as I hear his slogan, this "Make America Great Again," I don't understand the peak in America where it had this such greatness. But if we were to say that we have reached this progression of greatness, it was the fact that it was African slaves that were drugged here by force that make America great. It is the folks who crossed the Rio Grande who make America great. It is the Native Americans that have been in this country who make America great. It is the immigrants who come from these countries from across the world who build the fabrics of what this nation is. And if we are to be a nation that talks about our diversity, that talks about the melting pot that we are, and in that it is those immigrants who cross those rivers and come over who build the fabric of our nation. And it's sad and sickening and not surprising that the former president continues to echo those words out of his mouth.
Derek, if you're Black and brown, what he's saying is, frankly, I don't want y'all in the country. So I'm sorry, if you're Black and brown, you got to be an idiot to even consider voting for Donald Trump.
Roland, we don't even have to imagine what he would do if he got back into the Oval Office, right? I mean, how he attacked Baltimore, how he attacked Atlanta, predominantly Black metropolitan areas. This man said out of his own mouth his true feelings, his true thoughts. And so what we have to do this time around, and I appreciate your show in particular, because we're calling them out. We can't let folks off the hook and just simply try to downplay what he says when the camera is rolling. No, he didn't really mean that. It's a Freudian slip, et cetera, et cetera. No, he means what he said. And just like what he did, well, he attempted to do with the Central Park 5 that are now exonerated 5, the same thing that he did when he was the landlord of an apartment, putting a little C by every application where it was, families of color. This man has a long history, Roland, of racism, bigotry, and hatred, and we have to call it out.
Absolutely. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we're going to chat with Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton. These racists continue their attack on DEI in every aspect. Now they're trying to attack what's happening in medical schools, and she says this could have devastating consequences for the medical industry. We'll chat with her after this short break. Don't forget, support us in what we do. You can join the Bring the Funk fan club. Senior check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Next on The Black Table with me, Greg Carr, a conversation with Professor Toyin Falola, a man described by many as an African intellectual legend. He is without a doubt the most important and prolific writer, thinker, teacher, and servant of African studies in the modern world.
And then today, we have George Floyd, the Black Lives Matters, and the re-emergence of radical Black thought.
We're honored to welcome him to a very special, can't miss episode of The Black Table, only on the Blackstar Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Hello, I'm Jamia Pugh. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, just an hour right outside of Philadelphia.
My name is Jasmine Pugh. I'm also from Coatesville, Pennsylvania.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Oh, DEI, DEI, DEI. The right has been constantly attacking DEI programs, which is their latest attack on black folks. It was CRT, it's affirmative action, it's quotas, it's diversity. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and frankly, it's all anti-black. They're also bolstered by the Supreme Court's decision banning affirmative action in colleges and universities, and they've been using that to go after everything, which I told y'all this stuff was coming down. I've been talking about since 2009, wrote about it in my book, White Fear, how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. And so now what you have is an attack on medical schools. You've been hearing the language. Oh my goodness, conservatives like Dave Rubin, people are gonna be dying because we're letting these unqualified folks, these DEI hires in. Do they say anything about when people have been injured or died at the hands of white doctors? No, I don't think so. Well, Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton, of course, University of Virginia, anesthesiologist. She looked fired up. So she was posting some comments over the weekend. She sent me a text. She was like, Rolla, I gotta come on. I was like, Ebony, you're always welcome on the show. So, Doc, glad to have you. It's been a while since we've had you on. Glad to see you. So, you have not been happy with these folks. Take it away.
Right. I mean, it's one of these things. It's the same tired, rhetoric that we've had for generations, of where it is a blame black people for the lack of progression of our individual selves that racists seem to center on. And if we really don't look at, who benefits from DEI efforts in the first place, it's been the same thing since the women's suffrage back in the 1920s. The greatest benefactor of any type of affirmative action has always been and will continue to be white women. But in this discussion of who we should limit and keep out of the halls of the hospital, we're continuously pointing the finger at black people as if we're overwhelming the system in the first place. In fact, if you look at it, of all physicians, black women, we only make up 2% of the doctors. So these racist people that are screaming out, limit the DEI, they are literally punching air, because who are you talking about that's taking your spot?
Also, when we talk about this idea of DEI, go to my iPad. I mean, look, it's a part of the healthcare industry. This is from USA Today. Within medical schools, DEI is a broadly accepted part of basic training for quality care. We cannot deny the reality of, frankly, medical apartheid, how black folks have been treated separately from others. And so it's important to teach these things to get non-minority doctors to understand that you cannot bring your biases to the table when you are assessing patients. We know when it came to even, early on, racism actually helped black people in the sense of the opioid crisis, because early on, doctors were not prescribing black folks the powerful opioids because they said, oh, they must be here trying to get their fix in. So they were prescribing Tylenol, where they were giving the white folks all the other different drugs. And so they start dropping dead left and right. I remember I gave a speech and I said, wow, the one time racism actually helped black people for a while.
Right. And, we can talk about the problem that black people face, and then we can also talk about the impact that diversity has had on the medical field in general. The problem black people face, for one, we're nearly twice as likely to die from any kind of preventable heart disease. If you're between the ages of 45 and 54 years old and you're black, you're 3 times more likely to die from a stroke than if you're white. We can talk about cervical cancer and breast cancer and how black women are 2 times more likely to die from cervical cancer. We saw Jessica Pettaway, 36 years old. Life is over, right? From misdiagnosis from cervical cancer. We can talk about breast cancer and the fact that Black women have higher death rates in every single state of the United States of America. We can talk about prostate cancer and Black men being twice as likely to die from prostate cancer than if they were white. And Dr. Martin Luther King's youngest son, 62 years old, just died from prostate cancer. So we can talk about all these devastating things. And we can also talk about the benefit of why that means that we need more Black people in the medical field. For instance, if we're looking at infant mortality, right? We know that 1 in every 90 Black children, 1 in 90, will die before their first birthday. We bury them. But if you are a Black mother, in a Florida study of 1.8 million births, if you are a Black mother and you had a Black doctor, your child's likelihood of dying was cut in half. That is huge in itself. And then there was other studies looking at 1,600 counties that showed that if you had an increase in just 10% of Black physicians present, that you would increase mortality or your length of life by at least 30 days. These are the things that we are not talking about, of how Black people and Black doctors help to keep Black people alive. And it's not just about race. Again, we're looking at the greatest benefactors of the DEI movement. It has been women in totality, right? But if you look at women in the surgical field, there's a study looking at over 1.5 million cases. And what they saw was that if you had women taking care of patients instead of men, 32,000 people would be alive at the end of the year, in addition to what we already have, right? And then on surgical patients, it showed that of 1 million cases, if you had a female surgeon, you were 25% less likely to die than if you had a male surgeon. So when we have these opponents come in and say we should limit DEI and we should keep the underrepresented minorities out of medicine, what they are literally translating that to is that we can increase death and morbidity and mortality because we know those people and that diversity helps to keep people alive and reduce complications.
And you have a member of Congress who has been talking about this, and he's supposed to still address a health organization, and you're not too happy about that.
At all. That's Dr. Murphy. First of all, Dr. Murphy is a urologist. And if we look in 2018, they showed that of the 11,000 urologists that are around, right, that only 262 were Black. 11,262. Again, these people are punching air because who are you mad about that's taking your seat? And Dr. Murphy, for instance, I think he entered in medical school in 1985. We have to remember Tuskegee experiment didn't end until 1972. So there were not a lot of Black people in your medical school class anyway. That tells you how long we still have a lag in catching up to the numbers that we deserve, because we should be a reflection of the population that we serve, because we are public servants, we are medical providers.
Questions from the panel. Let's see here. Tyler, you're first.
Yeah, I would echo your words. I think, thank you for your leadership on this. And I think, it's shocking, but it's not, it's shocking to see with it, all the rhetoric that we've been seeing with DE&I has been just ongoing. And I think, as you mentioned before, diversity amongst physicians leads to better health outcomes for patients, and it leads to health equity and closes disparities. What can folks do to combat this? We see it in Congress as more of a message bill, but this could be a trickle-down effect into states across the country. What can folks do to ensure that their schools and communities are safe?
Right. I think one thing that we can do is we literally can say, hey, we are Black people and we're paying our taxes that go to fund these federally backed health insurance policies, Medicaid, Medicare. And if we know that our outcomes are better when we have physicians that look like us, that talk like us, whether that's our language, our native tongue, if they have our same religion, right? If they have our same sexual orientation, if they have our same gender, if they have our same race, if we know that they have better outcomes and that I am more likely to be alive, then this needs to be a federal policy and not one of these things where we're deeming, the public's feelings, of which most of these people don't even have a medical degree to begin with. They have not taken the MCAT to begin with. And then yet telling people who are qualified and who are not qualified to be in those positions. And so I think we need to start doing that. We need to start tying policies related to whether or not this is a civil rights issue. If we are dying more, shouldn't more be done to keep us alive? We are tax-paying citizens. We are citizens at large. Shouldn't there be something that looks at and holds accountable the institutions that we are turning our lives over to? If we look at the numbers for the hospital, for the department, down to the individual provider, and it is showing that you have a racial health disparity, and you're not showing how you are tackling those racial health disparities, then you should not be afforded federally backed dollars. That just does not make sense.
Are you actually trying to say the pro-life people actually care about Black lives?
Right.
Derek, your question.
Dr. Hilton, I really appreciate your work in this area. So mine's is sort of twofold, because we got the systemic challenges that we're dealing with here in Georgia. I'm right in Atlanta, where 82 counties out of 159 counties do not have an OBGYN. 61 counties out of 159 do not have a pediatrician. So how do we combat the structural challenges? But then there's a disinformation. As you were breaking it down, the facts, Georgia, depending on which ranking you look at, we're number 47, 48, or 49 when it comes down to maternal and infant mortality. 169 women died just simply trying to bring, life into this world. In Georgia, 776 children died just simply trying to become part of our population. And so how do we combat disinformation and misinformation when we are trying to give facts in our Georgia General Assembly down here, and at the same time in the Black community build trust? Because we noticed during COVID, because of the misinformation and disinformation, that trust factor really placed an impact on the things that we could and could not do during COVID.
Right. And you bring up great points. One, access, and then the misinformation or the stigma that's placed on Black people too, that the reason why we don't engage in medical conversations is because of one, just simply mistrust, and or for two, that we don't want to be compliant with recommendations. But I think what we see, if we particularly look at COVID, once Black people were actually allowed to get the vaccine, because we do have to remember there was a phase out process of when the vaccines were allowed to the public, right? And in the very first time, it was for medical providers, of which only 16% of medical providers are Black. And that's including nurses, that's including nurses tech on down, right? And then it went to along age group, and it said, well, if you're 75 and older, of which we know that of all Americans, 65 and older, only 9% are Black. So automatically they wrote us off as being able to be available to have are eligible to have the vaccine in the first place. It really wasn't until the summertime of 2021 that Black people in large were able to get vaccinated, unless those persons had severe heart disease, diabetes, had some form of cancer. Basically, you had to enter into 2020 with at least one of your organs dead and or gone, or you had to be a doctor in order to get vaccinated if you were Black, largely in the United States of America. But what you bring up is a very good point, though, as far as listening to the voices of Black people and getting them the resources that they need. What we saw with COVID, in addition to the misinformation and the lack of access to vaccines, the two big hurdles that we had to go through, was that there were no hospitals within our communities. Literally, there were mobile vans behind the grocery store. There were in the parking lots of the barbershop and the church, in the church communion hall, right? Those are where we had to show up in order to get vaccinated. And when the COVID pandemic was quote unquote over, those mobile vans disappeared. There was not one brick laid to establish a new clinic within those neighborhoods and those communities that we knew were dying at 5 to 6 times the rate of other community members right down the street. And so what I again urge Black people to do is, we know that health is political. Unfortunately, we can say, health and politics are two separate things, but it absolutely is not. And in Georgia in particular, we see the power of the vote and what you can do when we turn out in numbers. And I know it's difficult because they try to disenfranchise us. But again, you pay tax dollars. So why is it that you're taking money out of my check every month that I could be using to feed my children, and yet my children don't have a pediatrician within their community? Why is that? Why is it with the development of telehealth, Why is it that every single public school at this point doesn't have telehealth capabilities of where a pediatrician can dial in and view my child while they're still in school, and one, reduce the likelihood or the need for me to get off of work, right? And also prescribe the medication so they can get treatment right then and there. Why are we not doing that? We have absolutely the means to do it, but in America, because of the people that are in place, in power, have never had the kind of the consequence of what the disparity looks like. They don't live check to check. They've never had an issue of availability of a provider because they're afforded one, right? We have to look at that because it can, even with the best of persons, put a blinder up where you don't see the obstacle that everyday Americans are having to face. But when that blinding leads to the death of Black people, where we are now dying at younger ages than 2 and 3 generations ago, that is now a problem that we have to reconcile with, and America needs to do better.
And Ebony, the reality is when we look at, the numbers are the numbers. I mean, I don't care what category. It's not like, oh, we're doing great in any one particular area in the medical field.
It is true. I mean, again, if you look at the leading causes of death, 12 of the 15 leading causes of death, Black people have higher rates at younger ages. I mean, we can look at Chadwick Boseman, right? We can look at Dexter Scott King. We can look at Jessica Pettyway. We can look at near deaths too, though. We can look at Serena Williams. We can look at Beyonce and their complications with pregnancy. It's not only the ones of us who die that is an issue. That's a major issue. But it's also the ones of us that are living with the consequences of the near misses. And again, when we're living in the United States of America, where we're able to donate money to all these other countries, right? And we're able to, as you were saying in your previous segment, point at under countries and call them shithole countries. But we don't take a second to look within and wonder why we still don't have clean water in Flint, Michigan. And that was back in 2014. While we still have not all the power in Puerto Rico, right? How are we able to have these issues where we turn a blind eye to the best, most vulnerable populations when, again, these are tax-paying citizens? And I'm not saying that taxes are everything, but what I do know is that it takes money to run these programs. And we, with every single cent that comes out of your check, are funding these programs. We're funding these hospitals, and therefore they need to serve us. And that's how we start to really think about I feel we should start to think about the Black Lives Matter movement. Because like Dr. Martin Luther King said, of all forms of inequality, it's injustice in health that's the most shocking and most inhumane. We lose far more people at the hands of medicine and the lack of resources and the mixed diagnosis that happen and the lack of accountability when things go wrong within our community than we would ever do with the police system. But yet the call for reform is simply not there in the voice and the strength that it is when we see the happenings of Philando Castile and George Floyd and Sandra Bland, things that definitely need spotlighting. But Jessica Pettyway, she also deserves to be spotlighted.
Yep, absolutely. And so you have been sounding the alarm, so we appreciate it. And of course, as I said, you're welcome anytime. But I can't let you go yet, because I was on social media yesterday, and I came across this tweet right here. City girls, y'all had your run, but 2024 is for us, hashtag country girls. First, Beyonce and Cowboy Carter goes #1, and now South Carolina Gamecocks go #1. Let's go. So I'm going to let you go ahead and gloat for the country girls right now. I see Tyler. Tyler, what's this? Tyler, you got the orange, what? You an Astros fan, Tyler?
Look, I'm just got my Cowboy Carter on, celebrating the Beyonce. So.
Oh, all right then. Ebony, you and your fellow country girls feeling yourselves, huh?
I mean, as we should. I mean, again, we have the #1 album out. This is global. It's not just within the United States of America. And then I'm not sure if you all saw, but the Gamecocks did shut it down. And that is a very young team, so we're not going anywhere. I am from Little Africa, South Carolina. Please look us up. So, yes, I was very much not only clapping, but I felt like I was in the stands. Yes.
Gavin, you trying to say something?
Well, I was going to say I didn't get to ask my question, Roland.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I thought go ahead. What's your question for Ebony?
You're good. Dr. Hilton, thanks for joining us. I want to just thank you for all that you're doing, the service you're providing to your community, the platform, how you're using your platform. I mean, I just give you a follow on Twitter. I'm excited to stay engaged. And I want to thank you on behalf of all the young future Black doctors who are out there who are watching you do what you do and feel inspired by it. Folks like my little sister who is about to start dental school. I'm very proud of her. But I wanted to ask you, taking a step back and thinking about how we can build the pipeline of Black doctors in medicine. I know from friends of mine who are in the field, or like I said, my little sister, that there are a lot of barriers, right, that stand in the way of students making it to medical school. Academic barriers, obviously, but also some financial barriers, whether it comes to the MCAT test prep, or paying to actually take the MCAT, or paying for your application fees, your secondary fees. How can we remove some of these barriers? Are there policies? Should the medical schools be doing more? Are there scholarships out there for students who might be listening? Just wanted to get your take on how we can reduce these financial barriers that stand in the way of so many of our young, potentially future doctors, making that crossover into medical school.
That's a great question, and congratulations to your sister. It's one of those things. I didn't come from a medical family. My parents, they didn't graduate from high school. I mean, it really was a learned process of how do I even apply for this, and this? What do you mean there's an MCAT? But I was very fortunate to have people placed in my path that when I had a question, that I could go to them and say, can you just show me how? Because I know I'm more than capable. And that's the thing. Of all the degrees that you see behind me, truly my greatest degree is my lived life experience, because that can't be taught in a book. And it will make you, for those young people who are watching me thinking, I don't know what it takes to be a doctor. Because you've lived it, you absolutely then therefore understand what are the obstacles that are placed in the way of persons trying to get and receive access to medicine. And therefore you are exactly who we need to be there. So as far as what you can do to get medical resources and financial resources, this was probably about 10 years ago at this point, I made a YouTube video explaining just what you should do if you're a pre-med student. How do you get your letters of recommendation? What are some research projects you can do? How do you strengthen your application? What are some summer undergraduate research programs that are offered at all these different institutions? And also, where are some free MCAT prep programs? It's on my YouTube channel, of which, again, I only have like 2 videos. Do not look at it for that, because that's not what it was for. But anyway, it was EJ Hilton, I think is my at Gmail. I don't know. I don't do YouTube. But the point being, I will try to get it to Roland so he can post it. But underneath that video, in the caption, you can see all these links of where you can go and get these resources, because I do believe there are so many brilliant Black children that are in these communities that are oftentimes overlooked because we're Title I, right? That was me getting free lunch in elementary school. I lived that life. And because of that, that's why I know that there's no hospital within those communities, because there's still no hospital within my community that I grew up. And that's why I am so vocal when I speak out to say that those people, my family, their lives matter. And I can see the difference in the resources that are afforded to me now that I live in a higher income neighborhood than what I was when I was a child, who was just as brilliant, just as capable, just as eager to contribute to my community and to my country, but I wasn't giving the access, right? I had to go and actively try and be on this treadmill, proving to everyone on and on from every grade level that, yes, I can do this. And what it led to was me getting 3 degrees in 4 years while working 2 jobs, graduating with honors, going on to medical school, graduated top of my class, and then going on to be the first at every single institution I've worked at so far, the first and only Black person to work at that institution in my specialty. And it doesn't have to be that way. I am proud to say that since I've worked at those institutions, they've at least tripled the number, which means only 3, but still being very vocal that it is not right that we continue to allow for the exclusion of persons who are beneficial, not just because they're there, but they literally take better care. They reduce the morbidity, they reduce the mortality, meaning they reduce the complications and the likelihood that patients die. That's why we are needed.
Well, look, y'all, I tried during COVID to get Ebony to do more videos, and she and her partners with their health practice in South Carolina, they do some videos. I tried, y'all. I tried. So maybe we'll try Ebony Jade Hilton YouTube 2.0 in 2024.
Right.
We had to bring you to video boot camp. All right. Always good to see you, Ebony. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
All right, take care. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back, more. We'll talk about the Gamecocks going undefeated. And you got to love black people. Wait till I show you this video of Dawn Staley and her speech after winning the championship, as only black people could do it. Yeah. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Terry and I, we couldn't play in the white clubs in Minnesota. It felt like such a, strength through adversity type moment that I think black people just have to go through. We have to figure it out. Right. We make lemons out of lemonade. But there's a reason we rented a ballroom, did our own show, promoted it, got like 1,500 people to come out. Clubs were sitting empty. They were like, where's everybody at? And they said, they're down watching the band you wouldn't hire. So it taught us not only that we had the talent of musicians, but we also had to have the talent of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a seat at the table. It's like, no, let's build the table. That's right. We got to build the table. And, that's right. And that was the thing. And of course, after that, we got all kinds of offers. Of course. Right, to come play in the clubs. But we didn't do it. We said, no, we're good. No, we're good. We're good. And that's what put us on a path of national. And of course, when Prince made it, then it was like, okay, we see it can be done.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC.
Hey, what's up? It's Sammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back. Haiti should have a new president sworn in on February 7, 2026. That's the plan. Haitian leaders have finalized for a proposed transition government. A transitional government will work for 22 months to restore order to the gang-plagued capital of Port-au-Prince and prepare for two-year elections. The 9-member ruling council, comprised of 7 voting members and 2 non-voting observers, was named by a cross-section of political parties and civil society organizations. The plan ends nearly a month of negotiations to determine a path for selecting a new prime minister to replace outgoing leader Ariel Henry, the prime minister who resigned. The gangs continue to paralyze the country. Haiti's national police agency says that it has recovered a hijacked cargo ship laden with rice following a gun battle with gangs that lasted more than 5 hours. The gangs reportedly kidnapped everyone aboard the ship and stole some 10,000 sacks of rice out of the 60,000 sacks It was caring. The country is on the verge of starvation as more people are going hungry as the Caribbean nation struggles to survive with no stable government and the increase in deadly gang violence. The reality here, Derek, is that you've got to have security. You've got to be able to control what's happening. You have to give people any hope whatsoever. You cannot have gangs in complete control of the nation, of the nation's capital.
You know, the last time, Roland, I was on your show, and here we are a couple of weeks later. The trajectory for Haiti is going in the wrong direction. I really do believe that the United States can play a larger role, despite the history between Haiti and the United States. Put that aside. But when you had this kind of chaos, conflict, and confusion, when you have street-level gangs who are basically hijacking produce and bags of rice, as you mentioned, we just, as the United States, cannot stand by. We don't do it for European countries. We should not do it for Haiti in that sense. So we got to step up and do more and not just simply just watch this chaos and this conflict and this confusion to continue to run rapid in Haiti.
You know, it is a whole lot going on, Kevin, and retired General Russell Honore has not been happy with the Biden-Harris administration. He says they need to be far more vocal than they have been on this. He said, look, they're talking about Ukraine, talking about Israel. He said, but no mention at all from the president or the vice president of what's happening in Haiti.
I think it's important that the president and the vice president definitely say more on this issue. We know Secretary Blinken has been very active in trying to help negotiate peace in this situation. So I look forward to the administration continuing to, build on the work that they've been doing with CARICOM, to arrive at some stability in this situation. Because, look, we got a lot of problems here in the U.S., so we take for granted that we don't have to worry about the level of turmoil and chaos and violence that we're seeing, play out in Haiti right now. Because the bottom line is this: the people of Haiti deserve, way better than this. And I think the president and vice president certainly understand this. The vice president, as our first, Caribbean vice president ever, and the highest ranking certainly that we've ever had, I think is acutely aware of the needs of the Caribbean. She's met with a number of Caribbean leaders, both here in the U.S. and in the Caribbean. And so I do believe that she, and also the president, who is, certainly very well versed in foreign affairs during his long career, in government. I think they're both very well aware that the U.S. certainly has a big role to play. I think France certainly needs to be doing a whole lot more as well, especially given the history, between France and Haiti. Look, I'm very concerned. I mentioned it a few minutes ago, being a, son of Jamaican immigrants. I was in Jamaica not too long ago, and I was asking, someone who I met down there if he was concerned that some of what we've seen happen in Haiti as it pertains to the gang violence, which Jamaica is seeing a spike in, might have spillover effects to countries like Jamaica and elsewhere in the Caribbean. And he certainly was very, nervous and anxious about that. And a big reason why is because of the flow of guns, right, between countries like the U.S. and Jamaica, Haiti, and other Caribbean nations. So I think it's really important that, leaders of these various nations, recognize the need to clamp down on the illegal flow of guns, because that flow is really helping to support the gang violence and gang activity that we're seeing, in countries like Haiti. And so I do believe that the president and vice president, Secretary Blinken, are engaged on this issue. They recognize how important it is. And I look forward to them continuing to build on that work, doing even more to hopefully get to a situation, as they've done so far, to help bring about some peace, that they can actually, help get that done. And we can see some stability in government in Haiti for the benefit of the people.
Tyler?
Yeah, I would echo the same words. I was on the show when General was on, and I echo those. The hundreds of thousands of folks who are displaced by gang violence, and I think it's important that the administration and the president and vice president speak up. I think it's important in securing the streets again in the United States. However they can do in their support, I think we must pay attention to what's happening in these black countries. As what's happening in Sudan and the Congo, what's happening in Haiti should not be a blind eye to what's happening across the world. And I think it's important that we provide resources, that we support those who are seeking asylum to come to this country, that we are stopping deportations from going back, that we are offering support because at the end of the day, there are children and helpless people who need our help and support. And it's crucial that this administration address the need of the Haitian people, and that the administration also listens to trusted voices and media outlets, and that the president's advisors take into account of what Haitian Americans are saying that the response should be.
Absolutely, and so hopefully those things are going to get done. All right, folks, going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Dion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, Janiyah Adair has been missing from Memphis, Tennessee since February 13th. The 15-year-old is 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighs 114 pounds, and has black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Janiyah Adair is urged to call the Memphis Police Department at 901-545-2677, 901-545-2677. All right, folks, everybody all around the world was talking about the eclipse today, depending upon where you were located in the country. You had a lot of hilarious videos, people out trying to figure out what to do. We live streamed a feed. NASA, man, they had a feed. Their feed was absolutely packed on YouTube. At one point, I checked, some 700,000 people was on the NASA live feed, and it was actually pretty cool seeing all of the they were bouncing around the country, talking to a variety of people who were gathered as well. So it was pretty cool. So before now, depend upon where you were, you didn't see much of it. Some other places they actually had a lot, and let me tell you how significant NASA's YouTube channel was. I just checked; they had 3 hours and 9 minutes of coverage on their official broadcast. Go ahead to show us. So this is of course what they started with. I'm just going to advance it a little bit here, and they had a total of 11 million views over those 3 hours on NASA's coverage. Pretty cool there. So, okay, Tylik, were you eclipse focused today?
You know what, Roland? I went to all the stores and could not find glasses, but I saw your trick on Instagram, and I, flip my camera.
See, you always gotta, folks, y'all gotta understand, you gotta do your research. So I came across this story. It was from 2017, and what I did was I typed in eclipse in iPhone, and a story came up in 2017 that said, "Hey, no big deal if you don't have the sunglasses. The trick was for you to put your camera on selfie mode, and then again, don't stare at the camera, but actually take a photo of the eclipse, and then you would be able to actually see exactly what was taking place." And so again, depending upon where you were in the country, it showed different things. I'm going to pull up some photos in a second right here of what happened, what it was like for me where I was in Northern Virginia. I was checking out different times. So this here was one of the photos. This was another photo. You see I zoom in right here. And so it wasn't that great or dramatic, but it's all good. You just had different opportunities there. How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I took in the eclipse today. I certainly hope Donald Trump didn't stare directly in it again. Poor eyes. But I had fun. I had fun out there. I had my glasses on. And let's not let this moment pass without, calling for, all young Black folks out there who enjoyed looking up at the eclipse today to recognize that there is a career field out there, a number of career fields out there that, they can spend their days looking up into space through telescopes. We need more Black astronomers and engineers and astronauts. We actually have a Black man, Victor Glover, a NASA engineer, who's going to be going up to the International Space Station in the next SpaceX launch, and that's historic. That's really exciting. NASA did this really cool, or some of the Black NASA astronauts did a really cool campaign recently. Not astronauts, all sorts of engineers, young Black engineers who work for NASA in a number of capacities, did a really cool campaign on social media showing some of their, Black beautiful faces. And so, let's not let today pass without, putting in a plug for, more programs out there that are exposing, young Black students to careers in space. So, I think today was a lot of fun, but I think the sky is the limit, as to what our people can do to uncover more and more knowledge about space and our solar system.
Go to my iPad. Let me shout out my homegirl, Courtney Robertson. Today is her birthday. She actually traveled to Niagara Falls on the Canadian side to experience the eclipse. And so she sent me, she knows when she's going to shout out, but she sent me this video from Niagara Falls, which I thought was pretty cool. Derek, how about you?
Roland, I did not get a chance to participate in this.
The hell were you doing?
Listen, because we had another eclipse here in Atlanta, Roland. Today, 50 years ago, is when Hank Aaron eclipsed Babe Ruth Rucker and hit 715 homers. That was the eclipse we were participating here in the ATL, because 50 years ago, a man named Hammer and Hank Aaron surpassed, eclipsed, you like how I did that? Eclipsed Babe Ruth's record.
So was there a program or something that was going on today?
Oh, yes. There were several events that was happening. But, here as the largest Black caucus, we certainly celebrated and recognized Mr. Hammer and Hank Aaron, because, as you well know, not only did he eclipse Babe Ruth's record, but he broke so many barriers back then. And then even after he retired from baseball, he continued to break records. He eclipsed records in business as well. And so that's the solar eclipse that we were doing here in the ATL.
Okay. All right, then. So
you like how I played that eclipse? You like how I did that?
Yeah, that was a nice try. Go ahead. Somebody go ahead. Someone go ahead.
I was going to say, he spoke about, Victor Glover. I must say, with the alphas on the line, that Victor Glover is a man of Sigma, astronaut. Shout him out.
Okay, that's cute, but you're late. Yeah, that's cute, but you're late trying to get it in. And see, Derek, I'm always prepared for anything. So this is, of course, from 2017 when I was one of the hand-selected honorees of Hank Aaron for the Hank Aaron Courage Award. That was 7 years ago. And so this was some video that I shot in their new ballpark. That's the whole display they have there of Hank Aaron, including 755 baseball bats representing each one of the home runs he hit in his career. So that's the statue, of course, there showing his powerful hands. Folks, if y'all have not been to that stadium, listen, doesn't matter if your team plays there, you still want to be able to take advantage of that. So it was absolutely great to know Henry. First of all, let me be real clear. He preferred Henry Aaron. And so he never really liked being called Hank Aaron. It was shortened. And he would always say, Howard Bryant wrote a book on Henry Aaron, and anybody who he always knew who his friends were because they called him Henry. Everyone else called him Hank Aaron, and so that was always an interesting distinction about him as well. So it was great to be there a few years ago and to see him, chat with him. So all around a great day. And given you're absolutely right, it was one of the reasons why I love today. Because what it does is when you talk about the solar eclipse, I mean, it really does, I think, make a lot of people revert back to when they were children. Because it is interesting how, you know, Frank, it's how many people were excited about science in their younger days, and as they get older, it's like, oh my God, I don't want it. So I was watching all different videos and things on social media, how people were just preparing, and then there were literally like eclipse parties and people who were hanging out and all sorts of different things that were going on.
Definitely. I think days like today make science fun. And it's sad, right? Because like the more advanced you get in school, the subjects become harder and harder and harder. It's a lot easier to be like, nah, I don't really want to do that. But if you can get young people when they're young, if you can get them at an early age to love science, to love math, it's really like once you hook them, you got them, right? And as the subjects get harder and harder, they have that they have that love that they developed at a young age, and that'll drive them through. So I really love days like today, when other sorts of events happen where, all of us are glued to, our TVs, our phones, something to do with science, and we just see how cool it is. So, I think kudos to those who, unlike me, I was a neurobio major in college, Roland, actually, and I do not work in that field, but I did stick with my degree. I got that degree, but I credit my mom and my dad who, really, raised me to understand that science can be cool, right? That science can be fun. And I'm really so proud of my mom who, what she does now, she goes around Atlanta to different Title I schools and she brings hands-on science and engineering activities, to schools that otherwise wouldn't have those. And I've seen a meaningful difference in some of those students she's worked with for years who get older and they're like, actually, I might want to be an engineer. I might want to be a scientist. I might want to be a doctor. And so I think those sorts of things are so important, especially tying to the conversation we just had, with the doctor who joined us, that, we gotta increase the number of Black folks who are in these science and math and engineering fields. And days like today, hopefully, we can hook some of our kids and keep them on that path.
All right, then. All right, gotta go to a break and see, Derek, here you go. Since you were sitting here talking this. Hold on one second. I had it up. Give me 1 second. There we go. I got it back. And so this was from 2017. Henry Aaron, the great man himself. And so I will be sure to, when I get off of the air, a lot of times people forget this. When I get off there, I'll be sure to call his widow, Billy, just to check on her, see how she's doing. All right, y'all, hold on 1 second. We come back. We're talking South Carolina Gamecocks. National champions, 38-0. Lots of love for Don Staley. Well, that's next as we continue to celebrate Black excellence. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network.
bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
On the next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. People can't live with them, can't live without them. Our relationships often have more ups and downs than a boardwalk roller coaster, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Trust your gut. Whenever your gut is like, this isn't healthy, this isn't right, I don't like the way that I'm being treated. This goes for males and females. Trust your gut, and then whenever that gut feeling comes, have a conversation.
Knowing how to grow or when to go. A step-by-step guide on the next, A Balanced Life on Blackstar Network.
I'm Dee Barnes, and next on the frequency, Beyonce has always been country. We're talking to music, pop culture, and politics writer Taylor Crumpton about her new article on Beyonce's new country songs and how country music has always been part of Black culture.
Since the release of Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages, there has been a definition of what Black country music is and a definition of what white country music is. White country music historically has always won the awards, have always got the certifications. Black country music has not.
This is a conversation you don't want to miss. That's next on the frequency on the Blackstar Network.
What's good, y'all? This is Doug E. Fresh, and you're watching my brother Roland Martin Unfiltered as we go a little something like this. Hit it. It's real.
All right, a lot of attention was on Caitlin Clark, but guess what? They completely overlooked the folks who eventually won the national championship, and that is in women's college basketball, the South Carolina Gamecocks, SEC. They defeated. This is actually a video here, of course, the end of the game when they won the title. Quite an emotional Don Staley as their team won. Here's the trophy presentation.
2024 National Championship Trophy to Coach Don Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Trophy. All of the players, Bree Hall stepping up, hitting crucial shots. How was this a collection of effort tonight to achieve perfection? Before I do anything, I gotta give honor to the Most High God for allowing us to be back at the same place in which we had sad tears. And I just want you to know that the God I serve, when he closes a door, he opens up a door that's giving you unimaginable success. This is uncommon favor.
Now, y'all know black people. We got to be a little extra. So this brother on Instagram and TikTok, well, just go ahead and play it.
I gotta give honor to the Most High God for allowing us to be back at the same place in which we had sad tears. And I just want you to know that the God I serve, when he closes a door, he opens up a door that's giving you unimaginable success. This is uncommon favor. people, God. He's so uncommon favor. Uncommon favor. So
all right, so the panel, y'all were a little fired up there, Tyler.
I almost caught the Holy Ghost over here watching that video. It's something that an organ does to the people.
Derek?
It's like a stump and clap.
I was about to pass the plate. Here's the thing, though, Roland. That's the beautiful thing about our culture. That's the beautiful thing about our culture. It's authentic, it's real, it's genuine. We realize the same God that served our ancestors is the same God that we serve today. And so we realize we cannot do this on our own. Listen, Roland, I've been to those places during the General Convention. I heard you preach. I heard you preach to those brothers of the black, go. So it's part of our culture. We should not shy away from it, regardless if this is on a national stage or not, because in the end, Roland, we have to dictate our narrative. We have to dictate our narrative. And there's something to be said for Coach Dawn Staley to have a brand new starting five.
Yep.
And to get to 38-0 and seize the national championship, because the same five that she had last year, Roland, that Caitlin, they beat them by 4 points. They had a brand new starting five, and they brought the trophy home.
Gavin.
Yeah, see, this is why I was pulling for the Gamecocks. This is why I was pulling for Dawn Staley. I love to see black coaches win. And as a Southerner, I was, of course, pulling for South Carolina. But, man, I turned off the game. I didn't have her speech on, so I missed the sermon, unfortunately. But I thank you, and I thank that brother on Twitter for taking me to church tonight. I do remember reading that Coach Staley, she said, yeah, they're 38-0, but sometimes she didn't feel that way, right? She didn't feel it. So I don't know, we can only surmise and guess as to the emotional up and down, the roller coaster that she was on. We don't see it from where we sit.
Right.
We see the win after win after win after win after win after win. I could go on to the national championship, but we don't know the struggle that she was facing, just even as a human being, right? Outside of the game, or the struggle that people like Angel Reese, and others who were, viciously attacked throughout this whole season. And so when she talks about her God, when she talks about our God, we can only imagine, what that's rooted in. And it was an incredible game. And I'm so happy for Coach Staley, an incredible leader, and her team, including the girls who came off the bench and were just dropping buckets. So thank you for that. Thank you for taking us to church, Roland.
Well, she, of course, was enjoying the championship trophy, doing her strut, dancing with the trophy in hand. This is Dawn right here. Turn it up. Now, I told y'all black people do stuff a little bit extra, and so when Dawn Staley was coming to the arena, they shot a video of her going to the arena, and of course they had to put this to music as well. And I know this probably drove Jamel Hill and Barry Williams crazy because they're not fans of this song. That's why I'm purposely shouting them out. So I had to go ahead and play this one too. Return of the Mac. South Carolina wins its second national title in 3 years. They won, of course, 2 years ago, lost in the Final Four last year to Iowa. Won it all this year, going 38-0. Oh, and a lot of people have been talking about how Dawn Staley has become the first black coach to win 3 national titles. But that's actually not correct. She's the first black female coach. She's the first black coach to win it in Division 1A. Vice President Kamala Harris last week actually saluted the first HBCU to win 3 national championships, and that is Tennessee State. Watch this.
Hello, Tigers. Hello. Hello, welcome, everyone.
We were the first black school to play in an all-small, all-white tournament. And what happened? We won the tournament.
How many times?
3 times.
You know, 3 small college championships. Unbelievable. They don't even talk about it. It's not written about. And basketball is bigger now than it's ever been.
Your willingness to tell the story in such an active way is so important.
But this is the greatest day of my life. I don't even know how to explain it. Just the thing that we went through to be where we are, this is great. It's just don't get any better than this.
These gentlemen and their teammates who we have named are a perfect example of the excellence that comes from our HBCUs, and I'm incredibly proud.
And this is a photo of those players outside of the White House. They, of course, were not invited when they won. They won the NAIA, and here they are, 65 years later, and they won 3 of those titles. And, you know, for a lot of people out there who, you know, it trips me out, Gavin. You got people out there who say, oh, you know, this is performative, this stuff means nothing. It does mean something to those brothers who 65 years later got their just due. They won 3 national championships, and so you have had black coach win 3 national titles, and all too often, and even in Caitlin Clark's run, where she became the leading scorer, then people had to remember the other black female players who won, who of course, who led in scoring, Lynette Woodard and others. People forgot about those individuals, and this is a way to remind people of their greatness.
Absolutely. I don't care how old those men were. That was black boy joy, unadulterated black boy joy. It brought joy to my heart, definitely, to see that. And I've seen the photo circulating around on social media, and I think it brought joy to a lot of people's hearts. And I think it reminds us, the vice president alluded to this in what she was saying, and some of the men did there as well, that there's so much history in our community that just got lost to the history books, that have gotten lost to the record books. It's really important that, you know, as those today continue to make history, that we not forget those who've made history in the past. And we talk a lot about, you know, talking about some of the bad elements of our nation's history, slavery and all of that, and making sure that those events don't get lost, you know, to the history books. But it's also important that we make sure that these incredible stories of some incredible men who made history don't get lost either. And I know that was genuine. That was authentic for the vice president. She is so proud to be an HBCU alum, to be our nation's first HBCU vice president. You know, she talks about HBCUs as producing, you know, our nation's leaders and their centers of academic excellence. It's why she and the president have been so keen on making sure that our HBCUs get the funding that they deserve, even as Republican states deny public land-grant HBCUs the funding that they deserve. And fortunately, the Biden-Harris administration unveiled and uncovered this underfunding, and hopefully we'll see the states rectify these injustices. But, you know, you're right. These players didn't get their heroes welcome at the White House when they won their, you know, back-to-back-to-back titles. And I really enjoyed working on the vice president's speech last year when she brought the LSU Lady Tigers to the White House. It was really cool seeing Angel Reese and all that. And, you know, the vice president cares very deeply. She's a huge sports fan. But, as much as he cares about sports, he cares even more, about our HBCUs and making sure that we recognize our HBCU students and graduates, including the athletes, for the greatness and the excellence that they display on and off the court or the field.
And of course, while we're doing that, go to my iPad. Now remember, Caitlin Clark has Division I scoring record, but the most points ever scored by a woman in college basketball history is Pearl Moore of Florence, South Carolina. She scored 4,061 points. She played for Francis Marion University from 1975 to 1979. And, Derek, she did it without a three-point line.
For me, Roland, this is about justice. A lot of our trailblazers did not get their accolades, did not get their flowers. As I watch that video that you were just showing, what about the players who have gone on to glory, right? You're talking about 65 years ago, Roland. So what about those who are part of that team that did not get the invitation? And so this is about justice. This is about giving the flowers to our trailblazers. This is about demonstrating the contributions that we make to every industry in the United States, from corporate America to sports to media, broadcasters such as yourself. This is about justice, all right? This is not something that a handout or nothing. This is something about making sure that you acknowledge Black excellence. This is making sure that our trailblazers get their due awards just like everyone else. This is about justice for me.
And also, I just want people to also, again, when we're talking about, and I did do my radio commentary on this, and it is not meant to take away from Caitlin Clark. But one of the things that I remind people of, and that is, it kills me when people talk about Michael Jordan, dominating the NBA, and he's responsible for the NBA growth. And I got to remind people that before there was Michael Jordan, there was Magic Johnson, there was Larry Bird. Before there was Magic and Bird, there was Dr. J, there was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson. So the reality is, every generation has a player. So there's Caitlin Clark, but then let's not forget Myra Moore, Cheryl Miller, Lynette Woodard, and on and on and on. And we're talking about that. I also want folks to remember Lucia Harris Stewart. She died in 2022, and her story was a documentary was done on her. It actually won the Oscar for a documentary. And this sister here, she scored the first basket in a women's Olympic competition, and she was the first woman ever drafted by an NBA team. That's how bad, Tylee, this sister was when it came to playing basketball.
I'm gonna echo the words of Coach Don. We live in uncommon favor, and I think Black people overall, through our history, through our pain and our beauty, it has always been uncommon favor. And I live in that optimism. I live, in that hope. That though they may try to tear us down, it is our resilience, it is our culture. We are the culture. We got the juice, we got the sauce, we got it all. And so we are living in uncommon favor, and I'm excited for the great things that we will continue to do, because we break glass ceilings, we shatter ceilings, and we do the darn thing. So shout out to Black people.
Last year, this has caused a lot of controversy because, Lynette Woodard, she held the collegiate record, the big division collegiate record that Caitlin Clark did break. Now, yes, and when Lynette Woodard held it, it was a different time. They did not play with a smaller basketball. There was no three-point line. She actually said that a couple of days ago, and a lot of people have not been happy with these comments here. Watch this here.
I am the hidden figure, but no longer now. My record was hidden from everyone for 43 years. 43 years. I don't think, I'll just go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. I don't think my record has been broken because you can't duplicate what you're not duplicating. And so unless you come with a men's basketball and a two-point shot, hey, You know.
So that caused a lot of controversy because, look, Iowa celebrated her, brought Lynette Woodard in. She was well received by the fan base. And even their head basketball coach, when they were talking about Caitlin Clark breaking the record, said, well, the real record was the one held by Lynette Woodard that was broken. This is what their coach had to say.
To me, for the AIAW record that Lynette Woodard held, that was the real one. For some reason, the NCAA does not want to recognize the basketball that was played prior to 1982, and that's wrong. We played basketball back then. They just don't want to recognize it, and that hurts the rest of us that were playing at that time. I mean, there's no reason why that should not be the true record. And, at a school like Iowa that has been so rich in AIAW history, I just want to make sure we acknowledge Lynette's accomplishments in the game of basketball. But congratulations to Caitlin for being the true basketball leader in points tonight.
The NCAA didn't want to recognize women and what they did back in the 1980s. I think it just speaks to the foundation that these players have laid for us to have opportunities to be able to play in environments like this, in front of crowds like this. So I wouldn't have the opportunity to be able to do what I'm doing every single night if it wasn't for people like her. And obviously there's so many great players across the board. So I'm just really thankful and grateful to have those people that have come before me. And yeah, it's super special. Obviously she's one of the best all times, could certainly score the ball. But I think it just shows, Title IX is not that long ago. 50 years is not that long ago. And I think it just still shows the room that we have to improve, and where women's sports is going is a really great place.
Tonight is the night of the...
And again, Lynette's comments did cause a little stir, and so she did release a statement on social media stating, sort of clarifying her remarks. And I'm going to pull it up, but here's the, I get her point. But the reality is, I think when it comes to any record, I mean, listen, Pistol Pete Maravich, his record was broken, but when he played, there was no three-point line. In the NFL, I remember you had Deacon Jones, who complained about Bruce Smith and then Michael Strahan being the NFL sacks leader. They didn't count sacks when Deacon Jones was playing. Deacon Jones, they actually went back and watched all of his games to count his own sacks. So I mean, listen, I don't care if you're a player, Derek, you don't want to be forgotten. You don't want to act like your stuff didn't matter. But I do think, I mean, I get Lynette's point. She was a phenomenal player, but the reality is, listen, when the record is broken, you can't say, well, they had better track shoes, better tracks, they had this, they had that. It is what it is.
But you're right, Roland, but the reality is a lot of our textbooks do not include Black contributions. And I think that's the part that gives Black men and Black women the rub, especially those who played the game. I mean, folks don't even know about Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a game because nobody talks about it. It's not written nowhere. And so when... Oh, no,
hold on. It's written because that record ain't been broken.
I mean,
Kobe scored what, 80, 81? He still didn't score 100.
That's exactly right. But those types of records, although it was done 50, 60 years ago, folks can always say, well, we changed the distance from the goal. Yep. Those kind of things. Folks are faster and quicker and taller now. I guess the bottom line, Roland, and I saw someone tweet this yesterday, as a matter of fact, after South Carolina won. They said, can you be the greatest of all time if you never had a trophy or a ring?
Actually, you can.
Right? No, I'm just saying that was a rhetorical question.
I mean, I think people get caught up. I think people get caught up in all sorts of, well, how can you be the greatest? How can you be this here? First of all, they're all subjective. So there actually is no There's no standard, there's no objective standard to actually measure greatness. I've seen Gilbert Arenas was like, oh, well, you can't say Bill Russell was the greatest because during that time there were only 8 NBA teams and they were mostly white, as if Bill Russell couldn't have played in any era. So then you hear the era stuff. And you say, well, the guys said they are bigger and faster and, oh, he would have been outweighed and, oh, this whole deal. But the reality is, here's the whole deal. Kareem and Wilt, they actually changed the rules. They changed the rules because of their domination. And so I hear that all the time, and it just sort of drives me crazy because here's the deal. Charles Barkley never won a ring. Is he arguably the greatest power forward ever? Yep. Karl Malone never won a ring. John Stockton is the leader in assists and steals, all that. One of the greatest point guards? Yeah, it's no lie. So I just think people get caught up in that. Here was a statement from Lynette Woodard. She issued this on Instagram. To clarify my remarks made at an award ceremony on Saturday, no one respects Caitlin Clark's accomplishments more than I do. This is why I accepted Iowa's invitation to participate in Caitlin's senior day. My message was a lot has changed on and off the court, which makes it difficult to compare statistical accomplishments from different eras. Each is a snapshot in time. Caitlin holds the scoring record. I salute her and will be cheering for her throughout the rest of her career. I mean, so... yeah, we can make all the distinctions, Tyler. Look, it is what it is. But the bottom line is, but it is important, I think, if you are historians, if you are others, to as I said earlier, don't act as if the people before Caitlin Clark never existed. And I think I think we see that even in other sports, as if people only look at what they see in their era as opposed to what happened 30, 40, 50 years before. Go ahead.
No, I'll say exactly. I think it's important that we honor and acknowledge the fact that she was the leading scorer. Each generation has, as you said, different folks, and so it's important to highlight and acknowledge those folks.
Kevin?
And their contribution to the sport.
Yeah, I think both things can be true, right? We got to celebrate Lynette Woodard for the dominance that she displayed on the court. Just as now we ought to celebrate Caitlin Clark, for breaking that record and for her continued dominance. I'm looking forward to, seeing what she does in the WNBA too. And I think it's important that through all of this, right? And I think Lynette and Caitlin were in many, they were really agreeing on, I think, a fundamental truth, which is that I think we should all agree that women's sports, it's incredible the growth and popularity that we've seen, among women's sports in the past, the past number of years. We've seen interest just continue to increase and increase because of incredible, athletes like Caitlin Clark and so many others who have come before. I'm just using her as a modern example. So let's all celebrate the fact that tonight, for example, many people think that the men's game will not get anywhere near the number of views that yesterday's women's game got.
In fact, yesterday's championship, actually the last 3 games of Caitlin Clark's career, all 3 games broke the television record and it just went higher and higher. The game on yesterday, 18.4 million watched that game. And so, Gavin, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important to recognize. And also what I read today is that there were more bets placed on the LSU-Iowa game that happened, when was that, last week, than all the NHL and all but one MLB and NBA games that happened in the week before that. So we're continuing to just see this incredible explosion in interest and demand, and if you look at the top, I think, 5 highest earning college athletes from the standpoint of name, image, and likeness, or NIL, you've got folks like Caitlin Clark in there, who I think bringing home like $3+ million like this year. Angel Reese, I think, also hit $1 million. Like, you're seeing finally a recognition and an acknowledgement of just the incredible, excellence of women athletes across all sports. And so I'm excited to see, interest and enthusiasm and passion for women's sports continue to grow. And obviously it's important that along the way that we make sure that we're writing down and keeping accurate records of the women who are continuing to make history. So I just think it's important for us to not lose sight of the forest through the trees, which is that it's a good thing that we all ought to celebrate where women's sports are now versus where they were before, and amazing the progress we've made, and that the sport will continue to make among fans in the years ahead.
Go to my iPad. The numbers are clear. Check this out. This is from Richard Deitch. The women's game, it drew more than all but 4 college football games in 2023. It outdrew every World Series games since Game 7 of the 2019 World Series. It outdrew every NBA Finals game since Game 5 of the 2017 NBA Finals. It outdrew every Daytona 500 race since 2006, and the Masters is this week. The Masters is considered the preeminent golf major. The finals yesterday outdrew every Masters final round viewership, which includes Tiger Woods, since 2001. That shows you how much interest. Last point I'll make this here. There was somebody on our YouTube channel said, well, Roland, you're wrong because they measure greatness by titles. Guess what? The two greatest baseball hitters of all time, Ted Williams and Tony Gwynn, never won a World Series. Barry Bonds, who owns the career record, one of the greatest hitters in all of Major League Baseball history, never won a World Series. So this notion that you can't be a great player unless you win a title, it's a lie. Just saying. All right, going to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Blackstar Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the JODECI, that's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, it is National Minority Health Month, Black Maternal Health Week, and that latter issue has really gotten lots of attention. Vice President Kamala Harris has made this a significant priority, with Black maternal mortality rate 3 times higher than white women. But did you know that women are most vulnerable to dying after childbirth? And that studies have shown that the leading cause of maternal death is mental health conditions. Dr. Veronica Leslie-Bell is the medical director of quality at Oster Health Women's Services. Joins us from New Orleans, Louisiana. Glad to have you here. This has gotten lots, like I said, the vice president has really made this a significant priority. And we're seeing more attention paid to it because this is not just an issue that poor women are facing. Middle class, upper middle class. Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton was on earlier. She talked about Serena Williams, what she endured. So this is an issue that people have to recognize. Income ain't the determining factor.
Absolutely. When we look at the data, in fact, a Black woman with a college degree is twice as likely as a white woman with an 8th grade education to experience a maternal mortality. So as you pointed out, it's not just about education. It's not about the haves and the have-nots. It is about the fact that Black women are being mistreated.
And when you say mistreated, walk us through that.
Yeah, so when we think about disparities, it's always going to boil down to two things: systemic racism and implicit bias. And when I speak of implicit bias, I'm speaking of that unconscious bias that individuals have towards other individuals. In particular, when we think about that unconscious bias in Black women, the way that we have been characterized throughout history, the negative stereotypes then starts to affect how doctors, nurses, providers within the healthcare system interact with us. I think probably the worst, most damaging stereotype that has been put on Black women is the stereotype of the angry Black woman. And what happens is when we voice an issue, we voice a concern, often we are ignored because we're seen as the angry Black woman.
Mhm.
And then ourselves, we don't want to be that stereotype, so then we sometimes don't speak up when we do need to speak up.
Well, in fact, I'm trying to pull it up. 1 second. As you were talking, I remembered during COVID, there was a Black woman, and she was a nurse, and she was going off about her care, and folks were talking about her, and it's like, oh my God, she's angry. She eventually died. She was yelling, and she was like, I know what's going on with my body, and they were not listening to this sister.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what happened to Serena Williams. Serena Williams said, I am short of breath. She went on to say, I have a history of blood clots in my family, and she had to become pretty irate before they actually listened to her, got a CT scan, and saw that she actually did have a blood clot in her lungs. And that's when you're Serena Williams. You have everything at your hand. You have all of the power. You have all of the celebrity, and still what no one can see past your Black skin to listen to you.
Absolutely. Questions from the panel. Gavin, you're first.
Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. I think what's incredible to me is the hypocrisy that we're seeing from extremist Republican lawmakers who claim to care about life. They claim to be pro-life, but they're pushing policies that restrict women's access to reproductive care. And we're seeing, this happen, especially in a lot of states with high populations of Black women. And the Vice President, Kamala Harris, you referenced Roland a minute ago, who I worked for, she speaks very clearly about this hypocrisy that many of the same states that are enacting these bans or restrictions on accessing reproductive care are some of the same states with some of the highest rates of maternal mortality. Again, right, the hypocrisy could not be more clear. So I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit more about that phenomenon, right? What are the impacts, what are the implications of these restrictions on reproductive freedom that we've seen so far?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. And I'm so honored that Vice President Kamala Harris has put so much attention on this issue. I was honored to be a speaker at the Maternal Health Day of Action when she first released a package around working around maternal health. I think that it's important for us as citizens to pay attention to what is going on right now. As you mentioned, in some of the most restrictive states in terms of reproductive access is where we have our worst outcomes. This is just another example of how systemic policies then start to impact Black and brown people and how we can have worsening health outcomes for that. And so it's really important as community advocates, as individuals, that we pay attention and we use our voice in the way that we vote. And that is really the only way that this is going to change.
Tyler?
Yeah, thank you so much for your leadership on this. I'm a proud product of a Black woman, and every day her Black son is committed to fighting for the rights of justice and freedom. So as we continue to echo that Black women, as you mentioned, are 2 to 3 times more likely to die from complications, we must also leverage resources to amplify reproductive justice and freedom. Are there organizations or campaigns that folks that are tuned in and watching that they can engage in? And what resources can they tap into?
Yes, so I would encourage everybody to go to the CDC website to the Hear Her campaign. It is a great campaign with a lot of resources on what you can do if you are a Black woman or an individual who is pregnant, how you can advocate for yourself in the birth space. Also to make you aware of the warning signs. As Roland mentioned from the statistics, we know that the majority of deaths are actually not occurring in the hospital. They're occurring from the time patients are discharged up to 1 year postpartum, with the greatest number being in that first 6 weeks. And so it's really important that as we are going into pregnancy as Black women, but also for our support systems, for our community, for those that love us and that are around us, to understand what those post-birth warning signs are so that you know when to come back into the hospital and to know when something is wrong. And again, knowledge is power. And so the CDC Hear Her campaign gives all of us that knowledge to know what to advocate for.
And actually, I was talking about that Black nurse. She actually was a doctor. It was Dr. Susan Moore, and she complained about racist treatment at the Indiana University Hospital. This is actually some of what she. I'm going to play in a second. Give me a second. Some of what she had to say. And like I said, I remember this during COVID, and folks simply were not listening.
The second worst day at IU North. Yesterday, Dr. Bannock, Bannec, wanted to send me home. You know, at that time, I'd only received 2 treatments of the remdesivir. He said, you don't need it. You're not even short of breath. I said, yes, I am. Then he went on to say, you don't qualify. I must have, because I've gotten 2 treatments. And then he further stated, you should just go home right now. And I don't feel comfortable giving you any more narcotics. I was in so much pain from my neck. My neck hurt so bad. I was crushed. He made me feel like I was a drug addict. And he knew I was a physician. I don't take narcotics. I was hurting. So, spoke to patient advocate who left me wanting. There's not much I can do. So I started asking, send me to another hospital where they can treat me. And if they're not going to treat me here properly, send me to another hospital. Well, next thing I know, I'm getting a stat.
That right there, Doc, I mean, here's a Black doctor explaining what's going on. And you heard her say, the doctor said, I'm not giving you any more narcotics. I referenced that earlier, where early on in the opioid crisis, racism actually helped Black people because racist white doctors were not prescribing opioids to African Americans because, like this doctor, assumed that Black people were trying to get their fix.
Yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. And again, we see it play out time and time again in multiple stories. And it's all because of bias and implicit bias and biased beliefs. I mean, back in slavery time, they tried to make race a biological condition as a way to explain slavery and a way to advocate for slavery. And slavery and all of those ill ways that we were treated and the ways that they came up to try to advocate and agree for slavery are so ingrained in our society now that it has become a way of a thought process. And we see it play out in medicine. We see from a study that was done at the University of Virginia with over 200 white medical students, white residents, over 50% of them believe that Black people have thicker skin, have different nerve endings, and do not feel pain in the same way. And so if you are believing that and you are a healthcare provider and you have a Black patient that is saying they're in pain, are you going to really treat them appropriately? The answer is no. The data shows it. The greater that belief was that Black people don't feel pain in the same way, the less likely those residents and medical students were to adequately treat those patients' pain.
Derek?
Dr. Bell, I appreciate your work in this space. Georgia is ground zero when it comes to maternal health. We're ground zero. 169 women lost their lives last year just simply trying to give birth. 776 children, infants died. In fact, my constituent, she heard me at the press conference, Dr. Bell, and she said, Representative Jackson, my mother died 3 months after I was born. That was 50 years ago. And so a state like Georgia, where 82 counties out of 159 do not have an OBGYN, 62 counties do not have a pediatrician. We yet to expand Medicaid here in Georgia, but yet we sit on $16 billion surplus. My question to you, what can we do here in Georgia to help mitigate this maternal and infant mortality that we're seeing? Because we got CDC right in our backyard, and we're not throwing up our hands here. We're trying to get out the vote. We're talking about all these issues in this election cycle, but yet 169 women died here in Georgia, and we rank dead last when it comes to women's health because the number of counties do not have an OBGYN and a pediatrician.
Yeah, it is really, really sad to hear those numbers and to know that is the reality. And you're right. And the CDC is right there. I'll be there actually this week where we're talking about maternal mortality. And it really has to be fought on so many fronts. It is about the expansion of Medicaid. We've already talked about the majority of deaths are occurring after delivery. Medicaid only extends coverage up to 60 days postpartum. Well, there's a lot of stuff happening between 60 days and 1 year. And so there is federal movement to do more with the waivers, to have states extend Medicaid to 1 year postpartum. And again, I will always go back to the community needs to be aware of this so that they can vote, so they can get out the vote as their voice and their power. It's also about going from the ground up and working with grassroots organizations. I think that's one of the things that we have seen here in Louisiana that's been very helpful, working with the March of Dimes. And there are plenty other organizations that are not big name organizations that are actually working to advocate, working with legislators, working to be the voice of the community. We're constantly, I think, as healthcare systems and different organizations trying to design solutions for the community, but not talking to the community to hear what the community needs. And so, again, we've seen a lot of movement here in Louisiana just from these grassroots organizations that are community-based organizations, doula organizations, midwife organizations. They're in the community. They know what the community needs, and they're talking to the legislators and getting those actions moved. On a federal level, and I know that the Vice President has done a lot of work around this, but we have to start identifying and removing those barriers to, one, practicing in rural areas, but also for midwives. midwives. We are the only high-income country, or one of the only high-income countries, that does not have midwifery practice integrated into our obstetric healthcare system. Some states are doing it better than others, and those are states that have more independent practice for midwives. But we have got to incorporate midwives as part of our practice in the United States, or our system is going to fail. The data already shows that by 2030, we are going to be short 5,000 OBGYNs. Here in the South, 2,700. And you're already experiencing it in Georgia. We are experiencing it in Louisiana. We're seeing it in Mississippi. We're hearing every day about hospitals closing in Alabama and shortages in Alabama. So we have to think about who the healthcare workforce is, and it's not just obstetricians. We have to work on expanding our midwives and also our doulas.
All right, then. Well, Doc, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And so hopefully folks will understand how significant this issue is, and we definitely need action on the federal level, but also on the state level as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Derek, Tylik, and Gavin, I appreciate y'all being on today's show. Thank you so very much, gentlemen. I hope you have a great day. Folks, don't forget, support us in what we do. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. The goal is to raise $1 million for the work that we do when it comes to covering the news that matters. You can see your checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can also, of course, download the Blackstar Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And, of course, you can watch our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week streaming channel available on Amazon News by going to Amazon Fire. You can also tell Alexa play news from the Blackstar Network. We're on Plex TV, Amazon Freevee, Amazon Prime Video. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available bookstores nationwide. Get the audio version on Audible. Yes, it's me reading it. Folks, until then, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be at the Yale Public Policy Conference with Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, so I'll be speaking there. So, Carol, who's filling in tomorrow? Makongo Dabinga is going to be sitting in the chair for me tomorrow. I'll be live from Augusta on Wednesday and Thursday. And so that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla! Blackstar Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Blackstar Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?